before I conclude, I wanted to shortly tell you something that I'm pretty much interested in, we also shortly discussed, is the interaction of exercise and decisions. Yeah? This has been, for whatever reason, not really well investigated. If you look also at sports, exercise journals, then at scientific journals, I mean, there you really find no good studies on the interaction between exercise and decision making, and especially looking also at biological channels. Yeah? So, but of course, now if you look at health, it's an interaction of how much you exercise and what kind of food you intake. Yeah? So what we did is, we are now, next week we are finished. We did a long-term intervention study where we had 80 students, yeah, with a BMI between 25 and 30, so slightly overweight, yeah, and all of them wanted to do something about their health. Yeah. And so we invited them, and we randomly assigned them to two groups. Yeah. So one did now indoor cycling for 4 months, so cardiovascular exercise twice a week. And the other group did some kind of stretching, toning workout, which should not have a cardiovascular effect. Yeah? And at time point 1, which was done in April, we did a lot of measurements of the people. We did a structural brain scan, we did a fatty tissue measure with MRI, which you can do. So where you can see how much visceral fat and subcutaneous fat people have. And we took blood samples for genetic markers for all of these hormones which are coming from our fat and muscles, etc. We have hair samples, yeah, measuring cortisol, which is a measure for stress. Yeah. We already looked at the first samples. Something that's pretty fancy at the moment is to look at microbiota, yeah, that is bacteria in the gut, yeah, which we measure with stool samples. It's something you can talk a lot about, and of course, people had activity trackers for the whole time so that we could check that if the people who are going for cardiovascular exercise also perhaps move more in their real life. Yeah. And we had athletic performance, and also we're looking at immunology. So this would actually help to better understand, also because this is more biologically driven, you have to actually identify channels, biological channels which lead all these different lifestyles to interact with each other. Okay, so information on products, and this is not only true for nutrition information, but also labels, other kind of labels, brands or designs or whatever, they influence the expectations people have about products. And thereby they change or influence the valuation, the perception, but also the consumption of products. So it didn't talk as much about consumption now, but it also has an effect of how much people actually eat, yeah, and thereby also on calorie intake. What we do not know up to now is mainly how people differ in that. Yeah? The studies that we did up to now were only in lean, healthy, young subjects. So right now we're running subjects with obesity, but also older people and also children, which are very interesting. What we also do not know, if you want to use this, let's say for policy advice, yeah, what is important to know is the long-term effectiveness of these interventions. Yeah? So we did some studies in cafeterias in schools. We are right now running some at the university. And there also are already some studies looking on that in the field. But the evidence for that is much lower than for lab evidence that we have. Yeah? So we don't know how effective these labels are on choice in the long term and also in the field. Yeah? And we want to better understand interaction with biology and other lifestyle factors. So with that, I want to thank my group and you for your attention, and I'm open for discussions if you want to.
Thank you very much. So we have some time for a few questions. So, any questions for
what is your why people in the last 10-15 years have started to pay more attention to their health, like controlling their food, controlling how they exercise. Is it also somehow connected with sociology and...
Yeah. So the question was the change in the last year, how much people are interested in their health. Of course, social impact is very important. One other thing that I think is also very important to remind yourself is that is not really the large part of the population who's doing that. Yeah? So we do have a pretty biased view of how people are paying attention to their health. What you see in these population level data, you know, that people are getting less healthy, not more. Yeah. So this is only, so there's, at least in Germany and in other parts of Europe, I know that there's data on that there's a strong socioeconomic gradient in health, and especially in obesity, which is easy to measure. So you have low income, low educated people who don't seem to care at all. Yeah. And then you have high educated, rich people who care a lot. Yeah. So I think the view that people are paying more attention to that is a bit small. Yeah? This is a biased view because we are in an academic field, we only know people who are academics, and also you see here, you wouldn't expect an obesity problem. Yeah? So there are just no or very few obese people. Yeah? This is because it's related between socioeconomic status and obesity. And this is also a problem actually for politicians who also don't have this view. You see this in this data, yeah? But in your environment you don't encounter that. Yeah? So this is really a problem. So what's another thing which is a bit related to that is what people need to change behavior, yeah? Is that they have some more immediate feedback, yeah? which now with these activity trackers, etc., is available. Yeah? So you can easily measure, yeah? And this is a big trend wherever you go. Yeah? But this enables actually you to get a measure of your behavior, which is very difficult. You don't know how much calories you take in. You don't know how much you move. Yeah? But if you can track it, you can do something about it. Yeah? And so this is also another aspect which is related to that a lot, especially with fitness. With food, it is much more difficult because there are no easy ways to track that. Yeah? Also scientifically, it's very, very difficult. Yeah? And there, one other thing that is very difficult related to food is that the recommendations from the World Health Organization, for example, are on pretty shaky grounds. You know, they're changing a lot, yeah? Because the evidence for them is pretty shaky. Because they're mostly based on diaries people make, yeah? Food diaries, and these are just very, very difficult to do. Now, if you try yourself to fill out a form, of what you ate last week, or even just yesterday, it is very, very difficult. Now, even for lunch today, yeah? How many grams of pork did you eat? Yeah? This is just not possible. Yeah? So this is why these recommendations are always changing, which leads to the fact that people don't care about these recommendations at all. Yeah? And then it starts to become a bit of faith about what you think is a healthy or unhealthy outcome. And this is something that nutritionists also cannot agree on. So this is a very difficult issue. This was why I started to be more interested in exercise, which is more easy to measure, yeah, than food intake. But yeah, and I think there's this point of a biased view is very important, you know, because what we encounter usually on our everyday life doesn't relate to the data that we see in population.
Thank you for your lecture first, and I have a question regarding the experiment with the labels, like the fair trade label. So I think that there might be some sort of bias related to whether people have already seen products with such label before, and the pricing of those products.
Yeah.
So, like, if they've seen like they go to a supermarket and they see a fair trade product being labeled with a price higher than a similar product without such label, they might just accept it as some sort of norm and just believe that it should be so because they've seen it in the real world. And so then they price it higher, maybe unconsciously.
This might certainly be a problem. Yeah, I don't think this problem is too big because the price knowledge for these products is pretty low. So if you just ask people to state the market price, they are very bad at that. Yeah? So if you do that for yogurts, for example, in Germany, I don't know in rubles, but in euro, well, you get answers between 20 cents and €1.50 or something. Yeah? So people are very bad with that. They might have a feeling that and this is true, that fair trade products do have some added value. They do have some added value if you're willing to pay for these social, and they are also mostly organic, so also for that. So they're worth more to them. Yeah? But if you look at the prices that they stated, they're all below market price. Yeah? So the participants they didn't state the market price, but below that. Yeah? No, but this is certainly true. So in addition, you have or might have some demand effects. You know, that people see here you have different products, and here I see fair trade products. The experimenter expects me to also pay more for that. Yeah? The one thing is that they didn't see the same product in two conditions, but they saw totally different products. Yeah? So they cannot consciously do that. Yeah? So these are average prices for 50 or so different products. So they cannot consciously do that. Or they would have to have some rules of say, for every fair trade product I add 10 cents or something. But this is more different. So this is, in some way, this is a concern, totally. But I don't think the problem is too big here. Yeah?
Is it more favorable for companies that produce junk food like chips and sodas to use guideline system than the traffic light system?
Is it more what?
Favorable. I mean,
Yeah,
they or more.
Yeah.
Or more.
I think that's a difficult issue. Now in the European Parliament, there was this idea of having this traffic light system instated, and it was not accepted. It was banned, and people argue that the companies had a big stake in that, of doing that. Yeah? And I don't know. No, the effects that we see there are not really huge. They might have an effect actually on the sales, and I think the companies are afraid of that. Yeah? But I don't think on average. So the arguments against these traffic light labels are a bit different, and then I understand that also a bit. So what the nutritionists say, and they are one group that is against these traffic light labels. They say that it's not possible to have a healthy and unhealthy food product. Yeah? Because eating a chocolate bar is not unhealthy. Yeah? It doesn't affect your health at all. Yeah? It is about the food pattern that you have. Yeah? So labeling a certain product now would just increase perhaps regret in people, yeah? And they cannot really derive so much pleasantness from eating something. So one argument more coming from welfare point of view is that you would decrease actually welfare if you have these labels because people cannot enjoy these products. Yeah? And there's some I think there's some reason for that too. So these two arguments are important. The idea of changes in sales. Now what you see now in certain countries is that they put taxes on sugar. You know, this has just been done. In the UK, but you also see that in Southern America. I think in Chile they're doing that. So they're putting tax on that, which certainly affects the sales of the companies. Yeah? But it seems to be effective. Yeah? It decreases sales. But also we do not have long-term data on that. Yeah? So the idea here would be less invasive. Yeah? So people can still make choices. Yeah, whatever they like to do, and they wouldn't have to pay more or less. Yeah, but they would be provided with the information in a way that they can actually use this information in their choice. So this is perhaps a more liberal view. I don't know. Yeah, But my idea would be that you need to provide information to consumers in a way that they're able to use this information reasonably. And food is just one example, but the same is true for insurances or whatever. Where you have to read 50 pages and then sign something which you do not understand at all. Yeah. And but this is something that's debated now a lot. But of course, companies are first, but because people are against something changes most of the time. Yeah.
So perhaps a couple of last questions. Please.
Is there information whether health food consumption is growing or decreasing?
Sorry,
Can you just a little bit louder? We can't hear you.
Is there any data whether healthy food consumption is growing or decreasing?
Healthy food, if it is increasing or decreasing. The problem is a bit to know what is healthy or unhealthy. That's the problem. Now, if you look at vegetarians, which people think, or some people think it's healthy, and if you state that as healthy, even though studies don't show that, but people think that, then these are increasing. At least in Germany, they are. But again, now if you look at the population data, they can't. Or if people would buy that and then they don't eat it. I know, because you don't see an effect on health. So there are specific products or ranges of products which are increasing in sales, especially vegetarian stuff. At least in Europe, it's increasing dramatically. So in this regard, yes, but the problem is still no. And then if you talk to nutritionists, they hate this term of healthy item, and it's true. What you want is a variety of stuff that you eat. Then you're okay. But no one can really tell you this is good or bad.
Perhaps the last question.
Me? Thanks. I have a question about attention and choice and the looking time of the item.
What for choice?
The looking time of the item,
Mm-hmm.
attention, yeah? So, as I understand correctly, if you like in the item B more at the beginning, but still you're looking at the item A for a much longer time, you would still choose the item B?
No.
No?
No.
Anyway, you would choose the item you're looking more at?
Yeah, if you're looking more at item A, then the probability of choosing item A is higher. Even if you look at item B first.
No, I mean, like, from the start, you like Snickers more than Mars bar, right?
Yeah.
And still, if you're looking at the Mars bar for a longer time, what would you choose?
That's the problem. These are not forced attentions. So the people are free in where they look. So the fixation that they have are driven also by their preferences. So they also influence their preferences, but they're also driven by them. So this is kind of circular. So in a way, if you make people forced to look at one item first, this gets somewhat of a head start. And then the problem. So if you like Mars and Snickers equally, and then you force people to focus on Mars, then it would be more likely that they choose it. But if they prefer Snickers much more, then even by forcing them to look at Mars, it doesn't help.
So I think you still have time to approach Bernd and ask questions first.
Not all of you.
Most motivated. So I think the last 2 days since Bernd is visiting Russia for the first time, you make a lot of difficult food choices here. Because all dishes are new for you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.